And turning back to those 4 employees who have been fired from FEMA, debate continues to surround the agency. This in the wake of Elon Musk claiming that his Department of Government Efficiency found that FEMA spent that $59 million last week to continue housing illegal immigrants in luxury hotels in New York City. Acting FEMA Administrator Cameron Hamilton then announced that all such payments had been suspended. For more on this, we're now bringing in Mike Leon, NTD News contributor, Policy and Strategy Director of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, and host of the News Commentary podcast, Can We Please Talk? Mike, great to see you as always. Let's talk about those 4 employees that just got fired from FEMA. Now, notably, that includes the Chief Financial Officer of FEMA. Now, this was all for this claim Musk made about that $59 million payment here in New York City. Do you see any indication that we'll be seeing more cases like this coming up soon?
Hey, Fiona, good to see you. So, it's funny enough, I texted the spokesperson that released that, Tricia McLaughlin, because I wanted to find out a little bit more about this myself, and additionally because we were covering last night on our latest episode what DOJ has been uncovering, and we talked about and alluded to this $59 million payment to hotels for migrants. And as you know, I'm from New York City. I lived in that area in Hell's Kitchen around 50th and 10th, where some of the money is said to have been spent in terms of allocation for migrants in the areas. And obviously, everybody knows New York is a sanctuary city. But I think this speaks to the broader, right, Fiona, because what's happening right now and the pushback you're seeing is really about not so much government efficiency. It's about Elon Musk controlling government efficiency. And I think the pushback from Democrats is like, well, they don't like the person who's leading the organization, but you can't deny some of the things that they have uncovered that are grossly being wasted in terms of taxpayer dollars. This is one prime example. We can talk about how we house migrants and what we do about people that are coming here waiting for their asylum trials. It can't be in luxury hotels and it can't be on taxpayer dollars. And I think this is what is being uncovered so far with respect to what DOJ has done over these first couple of weeks.
Right. I want to get back to the criticism on Musk in a second. But first, in this statement about these 4 individuals being fired, they mentioned that these individuals had circumvented leadership and that this is an issue that's been brought up before, too. I mean, we saw the U.S. Government Accountability Office saying that they found some FEMA personnel performing oversight without the authorization to do so. How concerning do you find that?
We should all find it concerning, right? I mean, and again, it depends on, because as I was trying to pry information out of Tricia, which I was unable to get, Fiona, but we want to find out more from these employees. And I'm sure in the coming weeks, depending upon what they sign as part of their either NDA to not, be able to work somewhere else or disclose information about this, if it is a pending investigation, whatever it is, we're not going to be able to talk to these people as to why they went around their bosses and circumvented this and approved this funding. And I think this is, again, back to the core of what Elon Musk is championing about. There is inefficiency in government. There's bureaucracy, there's red tape, there's hurdles, there's the way information trickles down from the top to the bottom and vice versa, as you're seeing here, where these are lower level employees that are getting approval and maneuvering around maybe some people that were signing off on some of the things from FEMA at the C-suite level. So I'm concerned about it. We should all be concerned about it, specifically because it involves taxpayer dollars, the way Congress mandates these dollars. It involves all of our federal agencies that give money to be able to help people in times of crises. This is not one of them, or at least not the way the money should be being spent.
Absolutely. Now, Mike, here's a clip of Kristi Noem earlier on CNN. Let's take a look.
If the president came to you and said, "You're my DHS secretary, do you think I should get rid of FEMA?" Excuse me, get rid of FEMA, what would you say?
I would say yes, get rid of FEMA the way it exists today. We still need the resources and the funds and the finances to go to people that have these types of disasters like Hurricane Helene and the fires in California. But you need to let the local officials make the decisions on how that is deployed.
So, Mike, it seems that there's a trend in the Trump administration right now of moving responsibilities and jurisdiction away from the federal government and back to state and local government. So my question here is, are states equipped to handle that?
States depends on the size of the state, right? Some states are not equipped to handle that. So let's analyze one part that she mentioned there, Fiona, that I think got lost in all of this. In its current state, that's the big key. Because she's not saying get rid of FEMA entirely. She's talking about the way FEMA allocates funds, the bureaucracy and red tape that people go through to try to access those funds when there is times of crises, right? Down here in Florida, obviously what happened with hurricane that hit the Sarasota area back in August. Like there is funds that need to be allocated to people that are beyond state dollars, let's be honest, right? But there's red tape and hurdles and a lot of challenges that people go through to try to access those funds. So I think analyzing the key part of what she said there, Kristi Noem said there, remember, FEMA funnels into DHS. So obviously she's going to be the lead authority to talk to the president about what FEMA should exist in the current state. And I think that's the big key, because in its current state right now, given what we just saw of these employees that were fired, there's a little bit of misappropriation of funds and people going around the conventional norms of how we should be allocating these funds and resources to get it to the people that are actually hurting when disaster strikes.
And Mike, you're absolutely right. She's saying right now that we should get rid of FEMA perhaps in its current state. But do you see a possibility of Trump perhaps pushing for the full abolition of FEMA in the future? And if so, does he have the authority to actually do that?
To be said, I don't believe he has the authority. Here's the one thing I will say, Fiona. If you've looked at everything President Trump has run on, and is specifically, like, just go back one example, the abortion issue. States should decide it. He's always said that, right? If we're going with states should decide things, states should do something. The problem is we are the United States of America. There has to be a federal intervention, something that oversees all 50 states, or else we're all going to run wild. And also there's going to be a lot of states that have smaller budgets, that don't have as much population, as much income, economy being generated in those states, that are going to struggle. This is where you rely on federal dollars. So I would think that somebody way smarter than me, Fiona, would be whispering that in his ear from an economic secretary standpoint, or somebody that has the ear of the president. I know a few that have been assistants to him from an economic standpoint. I'm sure one of them have said there's a rhyme and a reason why FEMA does exist. But again, I want to go back to what she said in the current state. And I think it's just a central through line that I'm taking away from Elon Musk's Doge to what Kristi Noem just said there. Right now in the current state, money's being misappropriated and we're hitting $36 trillion in debt. We have to do something to start slashing budgets and figuring out how to stretch the dollar a little bit more.
Now, my other question here is, critics say that Elon Musk and Doge, they don't have the authorization, they don't have the power, and they should not be accessing all of this personal data that they currently have access to, especially with the DHS. Now, Noem says that Trump has given authorization. Is there any clear outline here of what Musk and Doge can have access to when they're making these investigations?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start with the clearance part of this. I mean, I think people are not realizing that back in the 60s, there was this special government employee mandate that came down where, I think it was 1962, where Elon Musk, a private citizen that's offering subject matter expertise, can now be a federal government employee for up to 130 days out of the 365-day-a-year calendar. So he qualifies under that. His office is working under that direction. And obviously, again, the scope and overreach of what they're trying to do, some of that's going to be challenged, as you saw some of the legal challenges that have been brought against some of the things that have come out of Doge. We're going to see how those play out in the courts with respect to lawsuits. But the central through line, again, and I love going to the through line, Fiona, is that Elon Musk was granted this by the president. It's within the executive authority to do this. But again, it's up to 130 days in terms of what they can do. And people, listen. 2009, Barack Obama did the exact same thing. Look it up from the Obama White House archives. April 18th of 2009, he appointed 2 different people to oversee government efficiency, wasteful spending, cut 5% across different programs. This is not Mike Leon making it up. This is from obamawhitehouse.archives.gov. You can go read about this information. So someone once upon a time tried to do this and really be efficient about the way government is spending dollars, our taxpayer dollars. And I think the ire is really about who's leading it versus what its aims are.
That's a really good point you make there. Now, before we go, of course, FEMA, whether you're for cutting it down, whether you're for keeping it going, at the end of the day, what matters is what they're doing for Americans who face these natural disasters. And you're in Florida, Mike, and you're definitely no stranger to hurricanes. So tell us, in your experience, how has FEMA performed there that you've observed?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I've been fortunate since I've been living down here that the eye of any storms have not come through the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach areas. But I have family that lives northern, obviously in the Orlando area, and obviously on the western side with Sarasota and the Tampa areas, which has been the ire of the storms, at least recently, right? Back in August, a lot of damage when I went up there in late September for a wedding and assessing the situation. And listen, this is what FEMA has done. And by the way, Jimmy Carter started FEMA in 1979. I feel like a lot of the things that Jimmy Carter started are being analyzed with the Trump administration, but he started this because we got to get a way to get people the funds that they need access to, whether it be emergency medical supplies, whether it be applying for, housing and fixing what happened to their house and the damage that was sustained, right? Natural disasters. This is what the money is for. And FEMA are some of the few people that are right on the ground, giving people the information that they need. It's not a blank check. They don't come here with money right away. Obviously, you have to go through the hurdles and the red tape. And that's why I think what Kristi Noem was saying about getting the money to the states and the localities faster, because they're on the ground. They can disseminate the funds. They know who's in need. They know the impact areas. You don't want somebody from the federal level that's never been to Sarasota, that's never been to some of these counties, and doesn't really know the impact and the damage and has to come here, as opposed to people that are already on the ground. So FEMA has done a good job in Florida. I know Ron DeSantis has talked about the relationship previously with President Biden and FEMA. They have done a good job, but there's still a lot of hurdles and red tape that people have to comb through to get the funds available to be able to fix, the situation that unfortunately was upended due to a natural disaster.
Absolutely, and that's a very important point to keep in mind. Mike Leon, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Fiona.